So good.
So good. Only Noah got it. No one else is doing good. Sounds like that's sad. Well, hopefully it'll be better after. So last week we talked about the law of modeling, where it states it's hard to improve and you have no one but yourself to follow. And we talked about basically seeking a mentor or coach who can help to guide you, because you can only go so far in your own standard when it comes to learning things. And this week we are talking about the law of expansion, and it states that growth always increases your capacity. So growing will always increase your capacity and will never stop your capacity to grow. So this law is basically talking about not hindering yourself to single points, but being able to expand further. Robert J. Kriegel says, the potential that exists within us is limitless and largely untapped. When you think of limits, you create them. When you think of limits, you create them. The moment you put yourself in a limit, you will be limited. Nike says, there is no finish line. It's the brand logo for Nike. He said there is no finish line, which means for Nike, they believe there's no limit to how far their company goes, no limit to their potential. And even now, they're still doing amazing, right? Their shoe brands are one of the coolest brands. I still wear those shoes all the time, because I think they're the dopest shoes. Their shoes are awesome. They're comfortable, too, I'm not going to lie, you know what I mean? So that's not a branding, so. But number one, how to increase your capacity. Most experts believe people typically only use 10% of their true potential. Well, if that's true, that means we have a very limitless potential to grow consistently. So that means we have so much to grow for. If most people only access 10%, what percent of your brain are you truly accessing then? Stop thinking more work and start thinking what works. Capacity is not always about more. It starts with better. Ask these questions about what works. What am I required to do? What gives me the greatest return? What gives me the greatest reward? So when you stop thinking more work, more things, I have to do more, not all the time is that more working. It may seem like it's working because a lot's getting done, but it may not take further step. Instead, when you're doing more, and you see what actually is working within all of it, and you ask, well, what am I required? And what's giving me the greatest return when I'm doing more? And what gives me the greatest reward while I'm doing all this? Stop thinking, can I? Start thinking, how can I?
That's right.
Everything looks like a failure when it's in the middle. When your mindset is stuck in the middle, everything seems like a failure because you're constantly saying, okay, well, can I do it? Instead of putting yourself in the middle, try to think about yourself further than being stuck in the middle. Go above and beyond so that you can start thinking, well, how can I do better? The most common reason people do not overcome the odds is they don't challenge them enough. They don't challenge the odds enough. They don't challenge what's happening that is a challenge. What would you attempt if you knew you could not fail? If you knew for a fact you could not fail whatsoever at anything you did, what would you attempt to do? I wrote down in my notes, well, if I knew for a fact I could definitely not fail at what I wanted to do, I would have kept playing soccer, no matter what. No matter what, I would have kept playing soccer. I would have went to college for soccer, and I would have tried even harder in college. I would have tried to make myself go bigger than just college, because I love this sport. But when I got to a certain age, when I was at a soccer camp, when I was around 17, I started thinking I just wasn't good enough to keep playing because I was too focused on basketball at school, and I was also focused on school mainly, and I thought that's what I needed to do, even though I didn't like school. But that's what I thought I could focus on. But if I had an opportunity to really believe that there was no way I could fail at it, which I probably could have done really good because I actually wasn't bad at soccer, but I felt like I wasn't that good because everyone else at that camp was just really good. But if I would believe if I could have had an attempt to always believe that I could not fail at it, that would have been the one thing I would have done. Self-limiting statements always work. When you limit yourself, self-limiting statements always work. When you are stating your limits,
That's right.
they will work. It does hinder you. It does make you feel conscious of what it says. Just like I
I
said,
won't do this, so blah, blah. Carry on.
they always work. Because like I said, if I would have knew for a fact I wouldn't have failed, I wouldn't have said, well, can I? Because I felt like I could not do it, I was like, well, I don't know if I can. So because I limited myself to a certain thing, saying I wasn't sure if I could actually play soccer that well down the road, I stopped doing it. Remember, most systems in nature are on a constant readjustment to correction, to correct the direction toward the goal. Body temperature is regulated by always correcting. A flower grows by always responding to the sun. So most things in nature are always on a constant readjustment to the correction toward a certain goal. When you know the trees year-round, when the sun comes up and it starts spring, they start to grow. When fall starts coming, the leaves start to fall, but the tree still stands. They readjust to survive weather. So in a sense, that means we should be doing the same thing. When there are things that are going around in our life, we should be able to constantly readjust the system that we have in our life to be able to go around and head toward the goal that we want when things come through or when things come toward us that could be a hindrance in our path. Fritz Perls says, learning is discovering that something is possible. So the more you learn, the more you discover that the things you are trying to do are possible. Nothing's impossible when you have God, right? But there's also nothing that's impossible when you don't limit yourself. When you believe there are no limits on what you're able to do, your brain opens up a box where your capacity tends to grow further so you learn more. Any one of us, if we put the true effort into it, could probably become a scientist of renowned level if we really put the effort into it. But none of us want to do that, I'm pretty sure, that are in this room. I don't know if anyone's watching that would want to do that either. But if you really put the effort into something, you can become it if you just put the effort in. So you must be able to constantly readjust and realize the more you learn, the more you discover that things are possible. Don't confuse the need to correct with failure, though. When something needs correction, it does not mean you failed. You could be doing the right thing, but there still sometimes can be a need to correct even those things to help further your future. So just because you are doing okay, don't act like you have no reason to still correct some things. Stop thinking one door and start thinking many doors. Oliver Wendell Holmes says, man's mind, once stretched by a new idea, never regains its original dimensions. Man's mind, once stretched by a new idea, never regains the original dimensions.
That's right.
There are always options. There's more than one way to do something successfully. The odds of arriving anywhere increase with creativity and adaptability. Movement with intentionality creates possibilities. Failures and setbacks can be great tools for learning. I've stated it many times throughout most of the lessons, there's always something that talks about failure should not be a hindrance, and it reiterates it often because they want people to remember, engrave that in your mind, no matter how much things could go wrong, failures and setbacks are always good tools to learn more on how to not make the same failure, on how to not make the same mistake over and over again. Knowing the future is difficult, but controlling the future is possible. Even without knowing what will happen in the future, being able to adjust things in your life to reach the goal you want in your future is possible. It's not impossible to do it. It's very possible. You just have to have a mindset where you don't limit yourself to only certain things in your life. Knowing today is essential. Controlling today is possible. So knowing your day is always essential, but controlling how the day goes, just like with controlling your future, is possible. Controlling the future is difficult, but you have to make sure that you're still pushing through things. The possibility is slim, but as long as you as long as you get to know your day, and as long as you control the day that you are doing the things and learning more, the future will not seem as impossible as it may be. Success is a result of continued action filled with continual adjustments. Success comes in many ways, many different options. But as long as you continue action, you continually adjust things, the possibility is limitless, no matter what you do. Number 2 states how to increase your capacity for action. Stop doing only those things you have done and start doing those things you could do and should do. Kevin Hall in the book, he states that to get to the level of master, you have to go through a journey. You first start as an apprentice at a job. You start off the lowest of the low, but when you finally start reaching toward the goal, you start actually trying to head towards something, you become a journeyman, he states. And while you're a journeyman, you're learning more and more and more while you're on your journey. And so eventually, while you're on your journey, you finally become the master of the thing that you're trying to do. Because you started off as someone learning, and then you went to someone going toward your goal. You went on your journey to reach that goal. And then once you've reached that goal, you've become the master of the thing you wanted. Will you continue to do what you have always done, or try something new? What we should do can and will shift in importance. So, instead of just always doing the same thing over and over, you gotta try something different. You gotta step out of your comfort zone, because expansion requires leaving your comfort zone. And making mistakes is a sign you are actually doing something. If you never make a mistake in something you're doing, you're never going to understand that there can be mistakes in the things you are doing, so you're never going to learn anything new from it.
That's right.
I can always, if I was trying to build a chair, I can always build a chair a certain way, no matter how many times I do it. And it could be right as many times as I'm doing it, but maybe there's slight adjustments in the chair that I can make to make it more stable, more comfortable, more reliable, nicer looking maybe. I don't know, whatever you want to do with it, but you're never going to know if the chair can be nicer, more stable, or feel more comfortable if you never make minor adjustments to the chair and work on it more, right? So you're never going to know if you can make a mistake because you've only done one thing your whole life. Stop doing what is expected of you and start doing more than is expected. Pablo Picasso says, I am always doing which I cannot do in order to learn how to do it. So, when you stop doing what is expected of you and start doing more than is expected, you must contribute. You can't not contribute when you're trying to do more. If you never contribute to what you're trying to do or to others, you're never going to learn that you can be more than expected, because you think you can only be what is expected. Because you're not contributing your effort as much, you're letting others contribute into your life only. It's not you. We live in a culture that gives trophies just for showing up. Like I said not that long ago in several chapters, I believe it was chapter 8, I talked about even when you show up to work, if you put no effort into it, you still get money just for being there. And there are a lot of jobs that are like that. Now, there are jobs that you need to put effort in, and those are the jobs that people go to contribute, to make effort, to learn, to further themselves. But there are jobs that you really don't have to do much, and it's not going to help you learn that much. And people are lazy when they go to those jobs because they know, hey, I don't have to do much. So they're getting their little trophy, their money to move on with their day, and they don't learn much. So they're getting their little award, They're not contributing much to further growth themselves, and it's not helping in their environment either. Expanding means we must do more than is expected. So even if you have a job that doesn't require you to do much, just do more than what's expected anyways. Because the people who are above you will see what you're doing. They'll see what your expectation is when you're working there, and they realize that you are putting in more effort than the person who just wants the trophy and wants to go home. Because you're contributing more work into it. Stop doing important things occasionally and start doing the important things daily. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow says, "Not enjoyment and not sorrow is our destined end always, but to live that each tomorrow finds us further than today." When is the time to not do important things? There's always time to do something important every day. If you make it seem as though you can't do certain things throughout your day that aren't important to your daily life, you are making it seem as though your life isn't as important as it should be. Because your daily habit expresses who you are. And if people see that your daily habit shows laziness or unwillingness to move, or unwillingness to learn, or unwillingness to have certain things in your life that you want, an unwillingness to change, a passion for stuff, your daily habits show all of that. Because whatever you're doing throughout your day can show the kind of person you are. Because that's who you are. You're living your life the way you want to live it. And if you live your life never really doing much, you're not consistently learning. And you're not doing things that are important to help you further a future. You have to remember, success is determined in your daily plans.
That's right.
So whenever you are constantly making plans and doing them daily and trying to fulfill and live to that fulfillment, you will constantly better yourself, because the plans that you have set throughout the day, you are getting done because those are the things that are the most important to you. Expand your capacity and expand your impact. Your impact is a direct function of your capacity. However you impact yourself and people around you is a direct function of your true capacity. If you're never making an impact around you, you're never making an impact to yourself, your capacity is limited, because you have limited yourself to make no impact on anybody or anyone or yourself. There's nothing in your past that determines your future. Your capacity must grow. I've said many times, the past has no reason to mess with your future. Your past should never determine who you shall become. Yeah, so what, you did this, so what, you did that. There are many people who have committed serious crimes and done seriously terrible things, have lived a life of complete laziness, and people know them for those things. It's all over social media sometimes. You see the famous people, they do something happened 10 years ago, and they come to now and they have their life on track, they're doing good, they're not doing certain things, they're trying to readjust. People still are like, yeah, but you did that 10 years ago. But that's not who they are anymore, and that's not how you should be. If something happened a year ago, 2 years ago, 3, 4, 5 years ago, it shouldn't matter. Those things were just something that you used as a stepping stone in your life to become who you are at the moment. Today is more important than what happened in the past. So if today is more important than what happened in your past, your future should definitely not be less important than today. Your future determines who you shall become. So your past should never hinder your future. Your capacity must keep growing, so that when you keep growing, your future gets brighter, becomes greater. You must ask yourself where your impact is right now. Ask yourself where you would like your impact to be. That difference is the limits of your capacity. When you ask yourself where you're at right now, what's the area you're making the most impact, and you ask yourself where would you like your impact to be, it can show where your capacity is. It shows where your limits are at. Because if you feel like you're making an impact if you feel like you're not making an impact in something, or you feel like you are making some impact in something, is that really the area you want to make the most impact? Because if your mind, you feel like you should be making an impact somewhere else, then clearly your capacity still has much more room to grow. So don't hinder yourself to something small. Make sure that no matter what you're doing, you are constantly diving in, constantly trying to learn something new. I mean, you could be that person that doesn't want to learn much. That's totally up to you. That's not going to be my choice. Because if I don't learn, I can't teach. If I don't learn, I can't move on. If I don't learn, I won't know how to be successful. If I don't learn, I'll be stuck sitting around and never knowing how much further I can grow. If I can't take a step, your capacity won't take a step. You limit yourself to where you believe you're limited. Samuel M. Silver says, "The greatest of all miracles is that we need not to be tomorrow what we are today. We can improve if we make use of the potentials implanted in us by God." We can improve if we make use of the potentials implanted in us by God. So the greatest miracle is that what we not need today, but what we are tomorrow. Or wait, need not be tomorrow, but what we are today. My bad. I rephrased that by accident. But it is good to constantly improve your day so that when tomorrow comes, you can say the same thing. Okay, I'm ready to learn something else today. And the next day, I'm ready to learn something else today. And the same thing every day. I had my friend Elliot over at my house last night, and we were talking, and I talked to him, and we were talking about just potential and what it means. And I told him, for me, never learning something new every day would make no sense. My mind is so out there. My limitation, my creativity, in my opinion, is more out there than most people around my age, that I only know a few people around my age that I truly believe want to keep growing. I told him the only really people I believe that feel like that are him. I was like my roommate, Calvin, my older brother, some of the people that are also in the church with us around my age. There are a lot of people I surround myself with that I truly believe that want to grow just like I do. And I told him basically like it's good to be outside the box, because when your mind is outside the box and you put yourself in a position to be like, what can I learn every day? What else can I do to make a difference every day in my own life? Even if your day is not good, you still need to find something in that day that you could still learn. Even if you did nothing that day, it wasn't good or it wasn't bad, you still need to find something throughout that day. Okay, what could I have learned today? What can I do to learn tomorrow instead if I didn't learn much today? Your mind must always be open to have an option to make sure there's something you're learning new every day, or your capacity won't grow. You'll be stuck in the same mindset every day until you start realizing that every single day must be a day you must learn something. You want your capacity to further grow in God and in yourself no matter what you do. So always be willing to learn something new. That's why when we have a habit of saying you read your Bible in the morning and read your Bible at night, you're learning something new just from reading the Bible every morning, right? You read a new scripture, God reveals something to you. It should be the same way with your day. After you're done reading your scripture, whatever you do through the day, say, okay, I want to try something different in my day. Maybe instead of drinking this in the morning, maybe I'll do this in the morning instead. Maybe instead of eating this kind of breakfast like I do consistently, maybe try something different. You want to try and learning something new every day. Your daily life should always reflect who you're going to become. So if you learn something new all the time, it reflects your daily life plan. So, have you made the transition from I can't or can I to how can I? Do some dreaming and then ask yourself this. If I knew I could not fail, what would I attempt? When you're at home, ask this to yourself. If I knew I could not fail, what would I attempt? If I had no limitations, what would I like to do? If money were not an issue, what would I be doing with my life right now? Do these things seem impossible or possible? If they seem possible, then you are ready to expand. If they seem impossible, you are not ready to expand. It means you are hindering yourself. You're putting yourself at a limit. Give yourself an effectiveness audit so that you can be sure you are thinking of what works instead of more work. Think about your own behavioral pattern. What is working and what do you need to adjust in your behavioral patterns? Use the criteria of required, return, and reward to help you make needed adjustments. So say, how can I? Ask yourself, what would you attempt to do? Try to put no limitations on yourself. Believe the impossible is possible. Make yourself effective with things that work in your life. And remember to always be like, what is required of me? What is come in great return? And what is the greatest reward when I do these things? So be ready for